I'm ToeJam, and in this video, I'm going to give you all the beginner basics you need to get into your first raid in Ghosts of Tabor. If you're like me, you want to know everything there is to know about a game, but at the same time, you want to get into the main gameplay as quickly as possible, and that's what this video is going to do. With as little knowledge as possible, I'm going to go through a brief overview of the game up until you enter your first raid. Each of the topics after this will have a more in-depth video, so keep an eye out for those in the future, or maybe they're already done by the time you're watching this. The overall gameplay loop is that it is an extraction looter shooter. The developers say it is inspired by games like Escape from Tarkov and DayZ. I'd also add in that it's like Hunt Showdown and the Cycle Frontier too, but it's much more like Escape from Tarkov in VR than anything else, and no, you cannot play this without a VR headset. Your goal is to go on raids and find loot to complete tasks to further your trader and safe room progression, and then amass as much loot as you possibly can. Much like the other games mentioned, it's a hardcore style game. Each life is unique and unrecoverable when you lose it, as you lose everything that you had on you, though your safe room and trader progression remains. When you first load in, you'll be put into a tutorial area. It's worth visiting each station to get a feel for the game. Each station has a holographic video attached talking you through to teach you the important things like how to shoot and how to break someone's neck, and some of the unimportant things like grabbing and which button is the trigger. You can skip this area if you're extra keen, but it's worth giving it a playthrough, especially if you're newer to VR. Don't worry, if you don't want to do it, you can always revisit the tutorial at any time using the menu. If you want to leave, find and clear the extract around the corner, or use the menu. Once you're out of the tutorial, or the next time you load the game, you'll be in the safe house. And the best way to think of this place is that it is your pre-raid personal lobby area, and where you'll spend your time re-gearing, handling items, and squadding up. There are a number of rooms with varying purposes, and depending on the version of the game that you own, depends on what you get access to right from the start. To gain access to these rooms, use the key cards on this table with the corresponding colours of their door. Not all rooms are available right now, but the three important rooms and areas are the trade kiosk, the armory, and the raid terminal. That doesn't mean the other areas don't have use, but for getting into a raid, these are the things that you'll use the most frequently. This is the armory. It's the storage room you'll probably use the most at the start and throughout. The tip here is to make sure you always leave one backpack, armor, and weapon slot free, as well as leave a table open for dumping gear on, as everything your character is using and wearing is lost when you quit the game. This is the trade room. There's a trade kiosk, selling mission turn-in kiosk, and some storage. You'll have all your care package stuff on this first monitor, and when you buy stuff from the trade market, it'll end up here. To hand things in or sell them, drop them on a conveyor belt, and use the kiosk next to it to sell things. To access the traders, you need to open your menu and hit this option. Then you head into the trade market, and from here, use each trader's independent terminal and your scanner, which is located in your pistol holster. You can grab and handle anything that isn't grayed out. Once you scan the object, you'll see it on the checkout. Choose a quantity and hit purchase. These will be sent to the trader kiosk you saw earlier. If you favourite something, you can then purchase it directly from the kiosk in the trade room. This is the raid terminal. You pick a location on the left, and while there are only two right now, they are adding more. Once you've chosen, then you need to decide if you're going into training or not. Training doesn't save your progress or loot, but is great for scouting and testing, without the fear of losing the gear that you currently have. Float mode is the main game mode, and how you progress tasks and traders, but where death results in you losing everything you took in. The contacts list is how you add your friends so that you can squad up in the future. You can use the search function to find them. The missions tab gives you a list of traders to choose missions from. These are repeatable missions, so it's best to pick missions that involve shooting at things, but keep a note of the objects that can be handed in so you can store them on a shelf, and when you have enough, you can pick up and turn in right away. You can see your current missions and their progress here too. The last tab on this part of the terminal shows you the trader progress. The higher the level of the trader, the more equipment you have access to in the Tabor market. Gearing up for your first few raids is complicated and a little overwhelming at first, plus you're on a steep learning curve, so make it simple and cheap to help yourself learn. Pick up the cheapest rig with one primary mod, one secondary mod, and one utility mod. Grab a pistol with one extra magazine and put that into your rig. Grab a cheap backpack and a couple of healing stims, and you're ready to go. You take a pistol because they're cheap and you need to be able to deal with the AI threat at least. You already made space for a spare magazine, which you'll need that as one is never enough. A backpack to take out all the spores you're going to find, and a healing stim for the first time you fall due to the mandatory gravity testing. A cheap rig with those attachments, as you're likely to find a primary weapon with extra magazines, and not having that one pouch for at least one spare mag quick to hand will get you dropped. I found this simple loadout a great way to learn the game as cheaply as possible without burning through my care package and being easily upgradable with in-raid found items. Personally, I use head-based movement, as when you use hand-based movement, if you move your hand around, it will cause you to strafe side to side. Even if you have your hands down on your lap, and you move your hands even a slight bit, it makes you strafe, and it's impossible to counter correctly with the thumbsticks, which means when you're inside of a building, it's very hard to move around effectively. Switching it to head-based movement makes it a lot more fluid for me. You can look around, however it does cause you to strafe a slight little bit, but not as much as it does when you use your hands. However, when you're free looking around, you can easily counter it with the thumbsticks. I've killed plenty of players so far because they're hot micing by talking to people in real life, friends on Discord, or even streaming. By default your mic is set to open, so either use software to make it push to talk, run a separate mic for in-game, or turn it off completely. You've probably already been prompted by the game at this point, but just make sure that your high calibration is set. You want to make it easy enough to pick things off the ground, and not be peeking above cover when you don't need to be. As I play seated for the most part due to having a bad back at the moment, I mostly just use auto calibrate and calibrate seat, and I haven't really had any issues with that at all. If you followed this as we went along, you'll be ready to head into your first raid. Where you spawn is entirely random, where other players spawn around you is entirely random, so players can be around the next corner or half a map away. Remember the tasks you have, check your compass, and make your way to the nearest extract while trying to make a little progress on the tasks, as well as looting a few things on the way. While you're learning, try to keep in mind that you shouldn't overstay your welcome, and the more noise you make, the more attention you bring to yourself. You'll be surprised at how effective stopping to take a moment to listen is in games like this. That's everything. If you think I missed something important to the basics of getting into your first raid, post it in the comments and I'll pin the best one. If you have any questions that can't wait, then come find me over on Twitch and ask. I've been Tojum. I'll see you next time.
What the f? I literally just stripped myself. I took all my clothes off. Right, boys, I'm back. I'm back. No problem. Oh, no. What the f? Just climbed up the whole ladder in once. Right. This game. Why am I naked again? Stop taking my clothes off, bro. Why? Why is this a thing?
Oh no!
I can't take my...
this.